Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at acrylic pouring.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot about this lately, kind of popping up all over the place.
Oh, yeah, it's super trendy. Right.
It is. It is. And I really wanted to understand what it was all about.
Yeah, yeah.
So I found this really cool article. It's from Irish Art Mart,
Okay.
and it's called Acrylic Pouring: How to Create Fluid Art with Bold, Abstract Designs.
Catchy.
I know, right? So I thought this would be the perfect thing to really unpack and understand what this whole acrylic pouring craze is all about.
Perfect source.
So before we get too far, I want to, of course, introduce the expert who's here to help me unpack all this and really make sense of it. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in. Acrylic pouring is, it's such a fun and fascinating technique.
I've been reading about it, and I have to say I'm already kind of intrigued,
Yeah, yeah.
but also a little intimidated.
Understandable. It seems like magic, almost, the way those colors blend and swirl together.
Exactly. And the article mentioned these things called cells.
Oh, yeah, the cells. Those are like the little pockets of color. They kind of emerge as the paint layers interact.
So it's not something you specifically create. They just happen.
It's a bit of both. You can encourage them with certain techniques, but the beauty is in that unpredictable element.
Like a happy little accident,
That's
like Bob Ross would say.
exactly. And each one is unique, like a little fingerprint within the artwork.
I love that. So it's like you're creating these mini universes on your canvas.
Totally. And what's cool is they often mimic patterns found in nature, like the rings of a tree trunk or the veins of a leaf.
Wow. That's so
It's like tapping into these natural patterns without even realizing it.
So it's like this beautiful blend of science and art.
Absolutely.
That's so awesome. Okay, so we know what it is, we know why people like it, but how do we actually do it?
Right. Well, like any art form, you need the right tools. The article lists a bunch of supplies, but I think you'll find some of them pretty surprising.
Oh, okay. Hit me with the unexpected.
Well, first you need acrylic paint, obviously,
Right.
but not just any acrylic paint. It has to be formulated specifically for pouring.
Really? So there's like special pouring paint.
Yep. Regular acrylics are too thick. The pouring kind has a smoother, more fluid consistency.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So you need the right paint. What else?
All right, are you ready for this? The secret weapon of acrylic pouring medium.
Pouring medium? What in the world is that?
It's like a magic potion that thins out the paint and lets it flow freely across the canvas. It's how you get those amazing patterns and effects.
Okay, I am intrigued. Pouring medium, got it. But there's got to be more to it than just paint and this magic potion.
There is, and this is where it gets really interesting. The article says you need a heat gun.
A heat gun, like for stripping paint off furniture.
I know it sounds crazy, right? But trust me, it's essential.
Okay, I'm all ears. What does the heat gun do?
It helps create those amazing cells we talked about.
Really?
Yeah, when you apply heat to the poured paint, it makes the different colors separate and react, forming those unique patterns.
That's incredible. It sounds like there's actually a lot of science involved in acrylic pouring.
There is, but also a lot of room for creativity and experimentation.
That's what I like to hear. So we've got our paint, our pouring medium, our trusty heat gun. What else do we need?
You'll need a canvas, of course.
Naturally.
And there are some optional but helpful tools like silicone oil, which can also help create those cells, and a level to make sure your canvas is perfectly flat.
Okay, starting to get the picture here. But it's not all about the tools, right? I mean, you need the right technique too.
Absolutely. And there are a ton of different ways to approach acrylic pouring, each with its own unique style and outcome.
Really? Like what kind of techniques are we talking about?
Well, the article mentions a few, like the dirty pour, the flip cup, and even the tree ring pour.
Dirty pour. That sounds kind of messy.
It can be, but it creates these beautiful, vibrant explosions of color.
And what about the flip cup? What's that all about?
You literally flip a cup full of layered paint onto the canvas. It creates these really cool layered patterns.
Okay, I'm already picturing the colorful chaos. And tree ring pour. Does that actually create rings like a tree?
It does. Concentric circles of color. It's pretty mesmerizing.
So basically there's a technique for every personality and every style.
Exactly. And that's what makes acrylic pouring so appealing. It's incredibly versatile. Anyone can do it.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal here. But I have to ask, are there any common mistakes that beginners make? Things to watch out for?
Oh, absolutely. Even with the best intentions, things can go wrong. One common problem is cracking in the dried paint.
Cracking? Why does that happen?
The article suggests it could be from using too much paint Or maybe the drying conditions aren't ideal.
Oh, right. Like if it's too humid?
Yeah, humidity can definitely play a role. And then there's muddiness.
Muddiness, like the colors get all muddy.
Yeah, it happens when you mix too many colors together. The end result can look a little dull.
So it's like too much of a good thing.
Exactly. You got to have some restraint and use a little color theory knowledge.
Makes sense. So
Mhm.
before we go any further with this, I think we need to talk expert tips.
Mm.
Because I want to do this right, you know. I want to create some seriously stunning pours.
All right. Let's talk tips. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so let's go back to that article. One of the things it emphasized was using a high-quality pouring medium. Why is that so important?
Well, think of the pouring medium as the conductor of the orchestra. It's what brings everything together. Helps the paint flow smoothly, prevents cracking, even slows down the drying process so you have more time to work.
More time to play with the paint. Sign me up. But what about those cells? Is there a trick to getting those, like, really defined, amazing cells?
There are a few. Adding a couple drops of silicone oil to your paint mix can really encourage those cells to form.
So silicone oil. Got it. Now, the article also mentioned something called a swipe. What is that exactly?
A swipe is a technique you use to blend the colors together in a more dramatic way. It kind of creates this beautiful gradient effect.
So you're like literally swiping the paint across the canvas.
Pretty much. You can use a palette knife or even a piece of cardboard. It gets you some really unique effects.
Okay, I'm loving all these cool terms. But hold on, there's one more element the article emphasized, and it all comes down to choosing the right.
Canvas.
Oh, of course. Silly me, I almost forgot about the canvas. What were we thinking?
Well, I guess we were caught up in all the other exciting supplies and techniques.
Right, the heat guns, the pouring mediums, it's all so fascinating. But yeah, you definitely need a surface to pour all those beautiful colors onto.
Exactly. And speaking of canvases, the article mentions that you don't necessarily have to stick to traditional canvases.
Oh, really? What other options are there? I'm intrigued.
Well, you can experiment with wood panels, ceramic tiles, even glass. It really opens up a whole world of possibilities in terms of texture and dimension.
Wow, that's so cool. I never even thought about pouring on something other than a canvas. I guess that goes back to what we were saying earlier about acrylic pouring being all about breaking the rules and embracing experimentation.
Absolutely. And speaking of breaking the rules, let's talk about those expert tips again. The article highlights a few that I think are especially helpful for beginners.
Perfect. I'm all ears. I'm ready to take my pouring game to the next level.
Okay, so one tip that stood out to me is about getting the paint consistency just right. It says that you need to aim for a honey-like consistency.
Honey-like. Okay, I can visualize that. Not too thick, not too runny.
Exactly. And the best way to achieve that is to, carefully add a little bit of pouring medium at a time until you get that perfect flow.
Makes sense. It's all about finding that sweet spot, right?
Right. Too thick and the paint won't flow properly. Too thin and you might lose those vibrant colors and interesting patterns.
I see, I see. So it's a delicate balance. Kind of like a science experiment, but with art.
I like that analogy. And speaking of science experiments, another tip the article mentions is about using a hairdryer instead of a heat gun if you don't have one.
A hair dryer, like for my hair.
Yep. It might sound a bit unconventional, but it can actually work in a pinch. It won't get as hot as a heat gun, but it can still create those cool cell effects.
Wow, I never would have thought of that. I'm starting to think I need to invest in a hair dryer just for my acrylic pouring adventures.
It might be a good idea. You can never have too many art supplies, right?
You're telling me. But even with all these tips and tricks, I think the most important thing is to have fun with it, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Acrylic pouring is all about letting go, being playful, and embracing the happy accident.
Exactly. Because sometimes those happy accidents turn out to be the most beautiful parts of the artwork.
I totally agree. And that brings us to another interesting point that the article mentions how acrylic pouring can actually be a really mindful and therapeutic experience.
Oh, I can see that. It's like you're so focused on the colors and the patterns that you kind of lose yourself in the moment.
Right. It's almost meditative. And the fact that you can't fully control the outcome can actually be quite liberating.
It's like surrendering to the creative process.
Exactly. And allowing yourself to be surprised by what emerges.
I love that. It's like a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life happen when we let go of control.
So true. And speaking of beautiful things, once you've created your acrylic pouring masterpiece, what do you do with it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess you could frame it, hang on a wall, give it as a gift. The possibilities are endless.
They are. And the article actually provides some specific suggestions for showcasing and even selling your acrylic pouring artwork.
Oh, really? Tell me more. I'm curious.
Well, it mentions online platforms like Irish Art Mart, Instagram, and Pinterest as great places to share your creations.
Right. Social media is such a powerful tool for artists these days.
It really is. It allows you to connect with a global audience, get feedback, and even build a following.
And who knows? Maybe even sell your artwork.
Exactly. And the article also points out that the popularity of acrylic pouring has created a really supportive and engaged online community.
That's so cool. It's like you're not just creating art, you're joining a movement.
I love that. It's like a global network of acrylic pouring enthusiasts. And speaking of enthusiasts, the article also mentions a podcast dedicated to exploring creative visions.
A podcast. That's awesome. It seems like there's a whole world of resources out there for those who want to dive deeper into this art form.
There really is. It's inspiring to see how many people are embracing acrylic pouring and sharing their creativity with the world.
It's like a reminder that art is for everyone. You don't need years of training or expensive equipment to create something beautiful and meaningful.
Absolutely. All you need is a little curiosity, a willingness to experiment, and a whole lot of paint.
Well said. So what are we waiting for? Let's wrap up this deep dive and go create some acrylic pouring magic.
I'm ready if you are. Let's go make some art.
All right. But before we do, I think we should leave our listeners with something to, really think about.
Yeah.
Give them something to ponder as they embark on their own acrylic pouring adventures.
I like that. A little food for thought.
Exactly. So we've talked about the how-tos, the tools, the techniques, even where to share your creations. But what we haven't really touched on is the why.
The why. You mean why acrylic pouring is so captivating? Why it's resonating with so many people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it about this art form that makes it so special?
That is a really interesting question.
Right. Because it's not just about the end result. It's about the process, too.
Totally. It's about embracing the unexpected, about letting go of perfection, and just seeing where the paint takes you.
And I think that's what makes it so appealing to so many people. It's like a form of creative freedom.
It is. It's about breaking free from the rules and just letting your intuition guide you.
And I think that's a really powerful thing, especially in today's world where everything feels so structured and planned out.
It's like a reminder that it's okay to let go, to be messy, to make mistakes.
And that sometimes the most beautiful things come from those unexpected moments of chaos.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners. As you start your acrylic pouring journey, remember to embrace the unknown, have fun, and don't be afraid to get a little messy.
Beautifully said. It's not about creating the perfect piece of art. It's about enjoying the process, the journey, the discovery.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up. A huge thank you to you for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. Always love talking art, especially when it's as fun and colorful as acrylic pouring.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you're feeling inspired to try out acrylic pouring for yourselves.
Don't forget to check out the links we mentioned earlier if you want to learn more. There's a whole world of resources out there.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe we'll feature some of your acrylic pouring masterpieces on a future episode.
That would be awesome. We'd love to see what you create.
So go forth and pour, my friends. Embrace the mess, embrace the magic, and most importantly, embrace the joy of creating something beautiful.
Happy pouring, everyone.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.